Welcome to the SmartTechCheck Podcast, hosted by Mark Vina, your home for candid, insightful, and provocative conversations about the smart home automation, security, smartphones, PC and console gaming, and much more.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Vina, host of the SmartTechCheck Podcast. Today is Friday, September 23rd, 2022. Joining me are the hardest working journalists in tech journalism. I had to say that. I had to come up with some. I know you're looking for.
Sorry, did somebody come in?
Stewart Wolpin, who scribes for Popular Mechanics, AARP, Techlicious, Investopedia, and other publications. John Quain, who writes for the New York Times, Smart Cities, and Tom's Guide. Rob Pecoraro is not going to be with us, but when he is, he writes frequently on tech policy for Wirecutter, PC Magazine, and USA Today. Gentlemen, how are each of you doing today?
Go Judge.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. Well, I would talk about baseball a little bit more with my friend Stewart. I think we would see a live version of John falling asleep. But John, let me just pin you for a second. You were at the Qualcomm event yesterday, weren't you? At the auto.
I was at their first automotive Inventors Day. Actually saw some friends, one of them who left PC Magazine and has gone to the dark side. He now is a Qualcomm employee.
I know who that guy is. I know who that guy is. Right.
Yeah, so it was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a topic for us to talk about, but give us your, and I know Rob was there as well. Was Rob there? Give me your 2 minutes impression. I mean, give me your impressions of the event. You know, and I think you sent out a tweet about this earlier. There's this kind of grandiose debate going on in the autonomous technology space of, who's going to win from an approach standpoint. Is it going to be the wireless companies, which obviously that's what Qualcomm is? Is it going to be the NVIDIAs of the world who believe in much more of an embedded technology approach for EV driving within the car? Any impressions?
Well, it's very interesting. The overall architecture of the car of the future is sort of what's being debated, and I've written about it a few times. In fact, for the New York Times, even years ago about it, because do we go with the CPU model and we have one processing unit in the center of the car and everything is based on that, or do we do what automotive companies typically do right now, and they have almost 300 different microprocessors in each car that anywhere on the road right now. It's all this functions are separated. There are some central units, but really the car can run independently. It's not relying on one CPU to run the whole thing. I mean, aside from the engine, of course. But so the idea is, could I win this battle for the autonomous or electric vehicle by making that one CPU? Could I be the Intel or NVIDIA, or in this case, Qualcomm Snapdragon is sort of what they're pitching as their proposal to do a lot of this.
Yes.
And the Snapdragon is already in the dashboards, going to dashboards for infotainment systems.
For many cars.
Could they do it all? Right.
Yeah,
they do it all. But no one.
No, go ahead. I was going to just
really
say the interesting thing is really the 5G issue. I mean, from a latency standpoint, because that's the fundamental question. If you rely on EV control to a large extent on really good 5G connectivity, you have to be in a robust 5G environment, because latency is the last thing you want to have as you're driving, with an EV.
Right, and I think people realize that that's not going to happen. I mean, even the cars right now are getting 4G. They're getting 4G. Even when they get 5G support, it turns out, they're not going to have millimeter wave support, which is really what you would need to do some of the tasks that we're talking about here.
Which is not going to be that for.
And then if you're going to Arizona, you don't have connectivity either. So I think they realize that that's not a thing. Will it help? Will it be great? We call E-Horizon, on the Merritt Parkway. There are blind spots all over that parkway. Yes, it will help, because there'll be connectivity there. It'll tell you the cars are stopped over the other side of the hill. And so it should result in congestion and stuff. But it's not going to be all and end all, solution for these cars. That's for sure.
Right. Interesting stuff. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the near future. But let's tee up our first topic here, and that is a topic I know that's close to your heart, Stewart. It's the ever emerging piece of silicon technology that we know as Bluetooth. most people know Bluetooth. I'm not sure most people know that there are versions associated with it, and it has evolved significantly over the years. When Bluetooth first came out, it was kind of a novel thing, and the operating systems didn't really support it directly. You had to add drivers, and you were lucky if you got a connection. Of course, it's now evolved dramatically with much better audio. Still not quite as good as a direct line. I think that's what a direct connection, which is essentially what I think the Bluetooth folks would like to see one day. But let's talk about this new version 5.2, Stewart.
Well, Bluetooth 5.2, which really should have been called Bluetooth 6, quite frankly, because it is such a huge upgrade in the technology. Right now, if you use wireless headphones, as most people do these days, the communication between the headset and your music device, your phone, is a codec called SBC, which I believe is sub-band code or something like that, which has been the real stumbling block to delivering the high quality that you're talking about, that high quality audio from the source device to your headphones and back again for conversations. Bluetooth 5.2 uses a new technology called LC3, which not only delivers higher quality audio, but does so at a lower bandwidth and uses less battery power. So that's the first advantage of it. Now, honestly, the only people who have really platinum ears will probably be able to hear that. But there are far wider ranging applications. One of the other things that the new standard uses is called broadcast. And what this is instead of a one-to-one Bluetooth headphone connection, you can now send a Bluetooth signal to what Bluetooth says is an unlimited number of devices. And in broad applications, for instance, I happened upon a huge dance party at Lincoln Center, outdoors at Lincoln Center during the summertime, a month or so ago. And there are all these hundreds, if not thousands of people dancing. They're all wearing Day-Glow headsets. And anybody who wasn't wearing a headset, if you were just standing and watching, you couldn't hear a thing except maybe the bleed out from the headphones. So they were using this technology to allow all these people to dance outdoors in public in silence. It can be used for PA systems, airport announcements. If you go to an airport, you're watching one of these big public TVs, you'll be able to hear the TV through your headphones if you want. The third major upgrade is for hearing aid wearers. And this will allow hearing aid wearers to get a Bluetooth signal. So instead of having the ambient sound amplified, it will feed sounds from concerts or PA announcements or anything, any sound that's coming from an artificial place to be beamed directly into their ears, which means that you'll have control over volume, but you'll get a direct sound instead of having what did he say? That sort of thing. So those are three of the major upgrades. Now, of course, what you're going to need is a new phone. And right now, the only phones with Bluetooth 5.2 are higher end models. All the iPhone 14s have it, the new Samsung Galaxy S22s, and about 25% of the new phones that are out now. Obviously, they will ramp up very quickly. You'll also need new headphones. The new AirPod Pros that Apple just announced will be 5.2. It'll take time for it to seep into headphones, and you will have to replace your headphones. But again, this will ramp up very, very quickly, especially since the usage cases are so compelling.
Well, it's interesting with the evolution of Bluetooth is that many people have multiple devices. Whether it's they have obviously a smartphone that's capable of Bluetooth, a tablet, a desktop, and Apple's tried to do this. And I know this new spec has some more secret sauce in the spec that allows you to have a more seamless experience. So because right now when you switch from your smartphone to your desktop to another device, you'll be able to do it more seamlessly.
Not only will you be able to switch from device to device, but source devices will be able to beam to multiple headsets.
Yes.
So if you're on a plane or a train with a friend and you want to watch the same video, both of you can be wearing your Bluetooth 5.2 headphones and both listen wirelessly instead of having to finagle with a dongle to separate headphones. It's a huge upgrade.
Now, John, because I like to think of you as you write for the common man. You're a very reasonable.
What do I write for?
No, you don't. Come on, give me a break. No, you Stewart. You all you guys, including Rob, has a very have gifts for being able to communicate things, fairly technical topics to mainstream audiences. But we were kind of joking about this before. If you polled 100 consumers, if you walk down Fifth Avenue and asked 100 people, do you know if Bluetooth 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 is new version, and asked them to, okay, what's so magical about it? I think the Bluetooth consortium has succeeded in embedding Bluetooth, the brand, in people's mind, but articulating these new iterations, which are important. Let's, John, opine on the challenges from a marketing standpoint, because the features that Stewart just outlined are very, very cool, but trying to, essentially you're leaving it up to the brands, the companies that embed this technology in their product to really carry the word forth. So talk a little bit about the marketing challenges around, communicating those new features.
It definitely is a challenge when you're doing, 5.2 and 5. There's already a Bluetooth 5.3, spec.
Yes.
There aren't any products yet, but there already is a spec. Just saying. It is difficult conveying the differences because a lot of consumers are basing, their impression upon when they first tried it. And you still get some people who say, I tried that Bluetooth thing. It didn't work. I couldn't pair it to my car. It didn't work, So they're going to be stuck with that. So I think the Wi-Fi people have done a better job, and to Stewart's point, saying, okay, this is Wi-Fi 6. This is a definitive kind of break from the last generation. And as Stewart mentioned, this low complexity communications codec, that's the LC3. You don't want to have that mouthful of stuff that you've got to explain to people. I mean, for me, it's just saying, look, there's going to be better wireless audio. And the other point is, but you need a new pair of headsets or, earbuds or whatever, because that's really what decodes the sound. And that's where the critical thing takes place. Technology takes place. So you need a new phone, and yes, you'll need new headsets or earbuds. So the next pair you get, then you'll get better Bluetooth audio out of that. That's sort of what I'm looking forward to, because I like music, and that's a critical component to me. So that's the way I sort of convey it. But the broadcast thing is kind of cool. I mean, for the other generation, the younger generation, they like to share songs often, something they just heard. And the only way they can do it is to plug the earbuds in, is what Stewart had alluded to. So this will make it a lot easier. You can just hook onto the other person's phone basically with a button and hear the same song in stereo and not in one channel. So that's good. But Stewart, I'm not watching baseball games on the airplane if we're on a same flight. Just not going to do it.
But what is interesting, and then we'll hit the next topic, is that Stewart made a very good point. You just can't go out and buy speakers or the new AirPods that have 5.2. You have to have a companion content source device, whether it's a phone or a tablet or a PC for that matter. That has that Bluetooth capability. And by the way, people hold on to their laptops for 2-3 years, maybe a little bit shorter with the pandemic, but that's over. And desktops, especially if I have a desktop computer, I'm not going to upgrade that until it conks out, so it will be a gradual transition. But let's get to the next topic here. And this is, and I have some personal experience with this myself. It's good old iOS 16, which rolled out about a week and a half ago. Actually rolled out about a couple of days before the first iPhone 14s showed up, because Apple obviously likes to seed the marketplace with a new version of the operating system. And there have been lots and lots of reports about bugs. I mean, I myself, on my old iPhone 13 and the new iPhone 16 that I got, kind of two interesting experiences. The iPhone 14 that I got, first of all, they already had an upgrade, 16.1 or 16.01 that I had to upgrade to. Yes. And what was really challenging about that, by the way, let me just, generally speaking, I think Apple does a pretty good job of allowing people to upgrade from one device to another without losing their data. They had some problems years ago, but I think for the most part it works. The experience that I had with 16 this time on a new iPhone, where I used the backup from my 13, it's a pretty seamless experience. The Outlook email client did not work. I mean, I tried to, it forces you to enter the passwords in again. Did that, just would not work. I had to delete Outlook as an app, reload it, then go through the sequence, and it worked. Again, I'm a pretty technical user. I was willing to, and by the way, one of the few people that write that, I use a password keeper to manage all my passwords. There's a lot of people out there that, what's my email password? I don't know what that is, So it really hasn't been that seamless for many people. And Stewart, I want to give you a chance to tee off because it sounds like you have a typical Stewart Wolpin-like robust opinion on this, but let me turn the floor over to you.
Well, two things. One, if you don't have an iPhone 14, my advice is do not upgrade to iOS 16 until they release 16.1, which is already in its second beta.
Right.
They're going to upgrade to 16.02 next week for people who have lucky enough to have gotten their iPhone 14s already. So those are the two takeaways. For anybody listening, if you've got an older phone, hold off on 16 until 16.1. Now, when talking about I only had a couple of issues. The password issue is endemic with upgrades. Apple always tells you that when you do the changeover from one phone to another and you use it from you restore from the iCloud backup, that your keychain will be copied over. I've never found that to be the case. I'm still entering passwords into several of my downloaded applications, and that all should have been copied over. But when you get your iPhone 14, you will get a notice on the screen that there's a new version available, which will take you to 16.1 now. Next week it's 16.2. Apple has already freely admitted that there are problems with 16.0 with FaceTime and messages. I'm not exactly sure what the problems are. I think one of them was the cut and paste issue. In fact, from what I understand, that if you do cut and paste, it keeps popping up with a prompt window saying, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Which it just kept popping up all the time. Yeah. John loves that.
John, I love your reaction. John, I should take a screenshot of that. That was a great reaction.
So the most the users will be able to do is either have the opportunity to update to 16.0.1 or 2 next week before they do the iCloud restore, or you'll just have to wait until afterwards. That will not solve the password issue, but it will make all the Apple applications work correctly and will make the transition, especially the eSIM transition. Remember, there's no physical SIM card in the iPhone 14. It's now all digital, right, and it will make that transfer of your phone number from your old phone to your new phone a lot smoother.
Now, John, I think your reaction was what is really your feedback. But the interesting thing is, Stewart sent some stats around. There are companies out there and websites that kind of track how quickly people upgrade from older versions of operating systems. And if you believe some of the data, Stewart, that you passed around, people are upgrading at a slightly slower pace than the previous version of iOS 15, and I think it's 14. It's 14. It's lower than iOS 14, and Apple likes to pride itself on the fact, and I think you guys would agree with this. Our customers upgrade to operating systems at a much faster pace than other companies, Android, even Windows on the PC side. Do you think consumers are getting a little bit more hesitant in general about, pulling that trigger because of either data loss, or even if it's not data loss, I can't go through an hour of frustration that certain features are not working as advertised, or it's through something else because I got to use my phone as an essential element of someone's arsenal when they're working all the time. So do you think consumers are getting a bit more hesitant? John?
Well, I sure am. I mean, I have to do it as you guys do so often, right?
Yes.
I have 3 brand new phones sitting here, and I'm just dreading having to test those 3 new phones because it means I've got to go through this process 3 times, and do all the apps. And we have scores and scores of apps because it's our job to have those stupid apps on the phone. So it's sort of an endless process. But also, there's a limit to but we also used to warn people like DOS 3.0, never take 3.0, wait to DOS 3.1 or 3.2, that was the rule. So you never switched, software on anything when it was just a .0 upgrade. But so I would definitely recommend that to people. But I think they're sort of running out of features to add too. It works pretty well on a smartphone interface with a touch screen, and voice command control and face recognition. And that's about it. Like, what else can you add that's really going to be compelling to that consumer to make them go, oh, well, I must have that one. The camera's a little bit better. Some of these things are a little bit better, but I think we're running out of steam and innovation to a degree. So you'll probably see that. And as everybody keeps saying at all these events now, the phrase is, macroeconomic climate, and the macroeconomic climate being inflation for all of us. And that's just going to hurt all sorts of things. So I might not buy the new phone quite yet because, milk costs more, bread costs more. I'm a little bit more resistant to make that upgrade.
Right. I want to make one other point about the upgrade.
Sure.
Understand that, to John's point, we're now in an iteration phase of the smartphones, almost a commodity phase, where the iterations are much less dramatic. However, most upgrades to every operating system, whether it's for your PC or for your phone or any device, are usually for security purposes. The hacker community is ever at work trying to pierce the veil of these device securities, and almost every update that comes out for every device that you own contains updated security, because these companies have discovered hackers have now found another backdoor in, and now the device maker has to cover that back door. And so it's this constant back and forth between the hackers and the device makers and the OS designers. So almost every operating system upgrade includes vital security updates to make sure your device stays safe. So fortunately, on the Apple side, they're a lot less prone to it, not because iOS is any stronger, but because hackers are trying to get into it, quite frankly. So you can afford to wait between 16.01 or between 15.7, which is the latest iOS version before 16, and 16.1.
Right.
Once you get into the next level, it is incumbent upon all device users to make sure their devices are updated so they don't get broken into.
Right. No, I think that's a great point.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's also, they've just had more time to attack the older software. So they've spent much more time finding holes in it. So the newer the software you have, even if it's not technically tighter, it's just they haven't had a chance to really attack it yet. Right. So you're always better off. So absolutely, Stewart's right about that.
I think those are great points. And unfortunately, when you go through that, you get that little update message on an iPhone, and I'm sure the same thing happens with Android phones as well. Is here are the new features of iOS 16, because they're always plugging all the 250 great new features, 5 of which may be really relevant for upgrading. But they'll put a little bullet. Oh, and this also includes security patches. It doesn't have that sexy feeling. And I think your guys are right. I think that you could argue that even if it might be worth the pain of the upgrade just to get the security capability that's in the newest release of the device operating system. Let's hit the next topic here. And Stewart, you're going to be not pleased to know that my changes. I actually changed the bullet because this bullet reads the wrong way. There's obviously air quality issues that disproportionately impact seniors in their homes, and air purifiers. I think you did some work recently on an AARP piece on how smart air purifiers can help with that. So I'm going to take this off the screen so people don't read the mistake that. But let's talk a little bit about that, Stewart.
Well, especially for the wintertime, which is what my AARP assignment, it hasn't run yet, so my apologies to my AARP editor. But essentially, I don't know if John or you have noticed, but all of a sudden, everybody and their brother is getting into the air purifier market. We went to a tabletop a month or so ago, and Clorox is now making air purifiers. And And the reason is, from what I've been able to understand from all the manufacturers and people that I've spoken to, is because COVID scared everybody. Yes. And as a result, all these companies are making these products that theoretically anyway, or at least they assume that people will assume that if you put one of these in, it reduces your COVID risk at home, which is not true, by the way. But almost everything in your home produces some sort of chemical pollutant, of breathable pollutant. New carpets and furniture, candles, cooking, your pets, breathing. You're breathing out carbon dioxide, which is not exactly good for you unless there's good ventilation. And what and in the wintertime, you've got every door and window and everything stays inside. So what the air purifiers are designed to do is to continually refresh the air in individual rooms. If you're going to go out and buy one of these things, you want to buy one that has been certified. All of these companies are coming out with these devices now that make all of these outlandish claims. But there are people who actually test these things. So you have the American Home Appliance Manufacturers Association, AHAM, not Alexander Hamilton, but AHAM, and Energy Star, both on their websites have a sortable list of certified air purifiers that tell you how often the room gets cleared. And usually you want something that'll clean the air in the room at least 4 times an hour. You want one, they work like air conditioners, essentially. You measure your room, and then you want an air purifier designed to clean rooms of that size.
Right.
They're very quiet, and they will mostly clear the air. I've had one for 5 years. I used to get sick for 3 or 4 days or up to a week every year like clockwork. The most I've had since I've installed this thing is a case of the sniffles.
Right.
So I have found it to be one of the most useful things I have ever gotten.
Yeah, and you're talking from a senior perspective. I would say that is true for all ages. And I want John to get a opine on this. But what's interesting is I'll expand this. I recently added a the name of the brand is Filtrete. I think it's 3M. They make a Bluetooth filter. Now, they're more expensive than your standard filter that you can put on your central air conditioning. And it is remarkable because not only will it tell you, most people, when they put a filter in their air conditioning unit, the only time they replace it is when someone reminds them, that the air conditioning may not be working because the motor is laboring in the air conditioning, sign that your filter is gummed up. And, that's the way I kind of operated. I try to do it once a quarter, which is when you're supposed to do it. I added one. I kind of switched to these last year, and it will tell you 10% is your filter is 10% clogged, 20%, 30%. And not only does it help you with air quality, but that also, by the way, helps you extend the life of your air conditioning because it doesn't have to labor as much. So, John, let me get your opinion on this because I really think it's kind of like a Rodney Dangerfield-like capability because people just don't, smart windows, smart blinds, smart this, smart that gets a lot of attention. But the air, hey, we depend on air quality. It can improve your health, especially to Stewart's point, over the long term.
Yeah, there are studies that show that actually for seniors and other people that air quality can affect, the propensity to have dementia, et cetera, and other illnesses down the road, neurological illnesses down the road. And there's a lot of studies that have been done too about the social effects of, health care, and depending on where people live, if you live in which is a very famous near LA with what they call a Black Death zone, because you were near all the shipping containers, all the particulates that were being created by all the shipping that was going on there. And if you lived in that area, you had a much greater chance to die 3 or 4 years earlier than the average person did that didn't live in it. So cleaning the air, the particulates are huge. I mean, so these air filters all pretty much work on that, the soot that people have. And that's a great thing. And I've used, again, to Stewart's point, I've had one for many years, but it started because years ago, somebody in the apartment above me drilled holes through the floor, and they created all this dust and all this damage. And the air filters I installed then, but yeah, I wouldn't do without them. They're absolutely essential. And they were starting to Stuart's point too. They were starting to pick up popularity just a couple of years before the pandemic. When we would be at IFA, the show in Berlin, they were much more of an international thing for European countries, and they talked more about indoor air quality then. And then the pandemic, they just kind of took off. But you have those VOCs, the volatile organic compounds. If you hang up a new piece of plastic, something, oh my gosh, that is so toxic. And these filters do work on materials like that. So there are a lot of reasons to get one. Highly recommended. Absolutely.
No, it's a great
couple of points I want to add. The first thing is, for COVID at least, there is a new technology, or a newer technology, called bipolar ionization. The problem is that it's largely untested. There have been some preliminary studies, but what they found is that it may produce ozone. And the bipolar ionization is supposed to hunt down and kill viruses and bacteria, including the SARS virus that causes COVID. So what the overseers, the certifiers, recommend is there's a UL certification, UL 2998, that is certified so the bipolar ionization doesn't introduce additional harmful particles into the air.
Right.
Second point is, when you have a central HVAC system like you say that you have, the latest filter technology is called MERV 13. That is the latest filter technology. You don't use a HEPA filter there, because the HEPA filters, I think, are too thick and will clog up the airflow. So it's a MERV 13 filter. The only issue with central air systems, and you might want to go with the suspender belt air purifier solution, is that your air conditioning and your heating isn't always on. And so as a result, your air isn't being circulated. Whereas a room air purifier, you can have it go on and off at certain cycles, but it will always be on when it needs to be on. The sensors sense when there's too much crap in the air and automatically switch on the fan to sweep out the room. So even if you have a central air conditioning system or a central air ventilation system, because it's not always on, it will not be as effective as a portable room unit.
Right. No, it's a great technology, and I wish really more people would consider getting one for their home, or especially their apartments, like you guys live in. And it's not very; these products are not very expensive.
No, they're less than $500 usually, and the filters are around $15 to $30, and you have to replace them, as John said, every quarter. And as your room gets cleaner, it means the filters don't need to be replaced as often.
And a small price to pay for terrific and keep you some focus on your health. But John and Stewart, listen, thanks for taking the time to join me for today's podcast. For our viewing and listening audience, thanks for making the SmartTechCheck podcast part of your day commute. Please make sure that you hit the like and subscribe buttons at the end of today's podcast, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Mark Vina Tech Guy. And until next time, have a great week. And guys, thanks for calling in.